Hello, everybody, and welcome to Walking Down the Warwick Road and part 2 of our Tommy Doc special, Oh Tommy Tommy. Large panel with us today. I guess I'll get to introducing everybody right off the top. Of course, below me is my co-host, Pete Molyneux. Pete, how are you?
I'm very good, thanks, Tom. Tim, Tom. I'm very well.
Apart
from not being able to speak properly, I'm very well.
I swear we know each other.
We have met.
Next to me is United author and longtime Cockney Red, David Blatt. David, how are you?
Very well. Good.
And of course, below David, we're honored to be joined by the granddaughter of Tommy Docky. Amy, how are you?
Good. Well, well, thank you, guys. Thank you for inviting me on and having me. I usually do the She Devils United stream, so it's a bit weird being in a box with blokes, really. Right.
Oh, it's great to have you. Really good to have you.
Yeah. I'll second that.
Yeah.
Can I say it? You've got no authority. No authority.
Well, I guess we'll just jump right into it. So we finished off part 1, obviously. The 73-74 season ended in relegation. And maybe, Pete, if you could just pick it up from, you and David could pick it up from sort of the mood, the atmosphere amongst the supporters, what the expectations were going into that season in the second division. The signings that came in. What was the mood like?
Well, yeah, you're right. I do like a story to have a happy ending, and the last episode didn't, because Manchester United for the first time in 30 odd years were in the second division. But today's episode has a happier ending. Mm-hmm. So United had gone down second division. Probably. One thing we didn't mention last time, Tommy Doc had taken on as his coach, but also kind of his right-hand man, Tommy Kavanagh. And they formed a formidable partnership for the next 3 years. Tommy Kavanagh was there even when Dave Sexton was there, so he served longer. But the two Tommies really did turn things round for Manchester United, and we'll cover that today. I think they knew each other as young lads at Preston, I believe.
Yeah.
And anyway, so Tommy Kavanagh was there. The problem United had in going down is I think they'd created a 72-year-old record for the lowest number of goals we'd scored in a league season. 38 goals we scored in 73-74 when we went down. So all Tommy Doc did was buy a goal scorer, and that was a guy called Stuart Pearson from Hull, who played in second division, and turned out to be, as Tommy Doc was very good at, a real bargain buy. He was great at bargain buys. So we bought Stuart Pearson, and off we went. And other than that, it was the squad that had gone down. And we opened the season at Orient, Brisbane Road, and on a lovely sunny August day. And I'll let David take it from there, I think.
Well, yeah, because when the last season ended, very angry, but we had a summer season to get over it, and then we came to terms with it. We're looking forward to it. As you say, lovely sunny day, but the press had been full of United hooligans, come down, lock up your daughters, and so on. Mm-hmm. After 5 stops on the Central Line, because I live nearby, I got off at Leighton Station. All you saw were the boys in blue, all the way down to a Brisbane Road ground. All the shops were boarded up, and we were like walking down the road. I think they stopped the traffic. We walked all the way there, and it was Reds everywhere. And I have to say, it was a brilliant atmosphere. We took up 3/4 of the ground. I was behind the goal, and I remember before the game started, Brian Moore from The Big Match made his way up a rickety, rusty steps up to the TV gantry above us. So, of course, all the United fans gave him lots of encouragement with a bit of Anglo-Saxon thrown in. The game itself was brilliant. Stuart Houston, I think Willie Morgan. Because the end of the last season, Tommy Docherty realises we're United, we're attacking. Too late, he stopped his defence and we went attacking. So we regrouped. And it turned out to be my favourite, Pancho, with his famous fist game. And I remember the game. there was lots of trouble. I didn't see it. I was just concentrating on the football. But I remember the Orient manager. Now, you have to remember, Leighton Orient came, I think, third in the second division and just missed out on promotion. They were a good team. And George, their manager, came out after the game. I saw it. He said, "Oh, well, at least we're just 2 points behind the leaders," which was a real Ron manager sort of thing to say.
Yeah, that game against Orient really kicked off. Like, they started the season really well that season. 4 wins, obviously, on the bounce.
Well, the following day was
United.
Yeah.
It was. It was a cracking start. It really was. Of course, none of us knew this. With hindsight, everybody said, "Oh, I knew United had bounced back." But in that second division that year, there was some sleeping giants, you'd call them, that were trying to get back up, like Forest and Villa, Sunderland, Sheffield Wednesday. And some of those ended up disappearing to the third and fourth division. You couldn't imagine that happening to United, but nobody really knew because it had been a decline that had now been going on for 5 years. But David touched on the trouble there, and one thing we don't want to do on this podcast generally is glorify hooliganism. But I think what it is important to stress is that hooliganism and trouble on the terraces was there at every football match you went to, whether you liked it or not. And if you weren't involved in it, which most weren't, you could always be at risk of it. So if we do seem to mention it a few times, it's not because we're trying to glorify it. We're just trying to report accurately on what the scene was at the time. And I guess the only other point, Tim, I'd say as regards the numbers that United took, if it's so different from now, where you have 3,000 allocated away following, you have to be registered. They know everything from your inside leg number to your DNA, and you're controlled. And that's the society we have now, right or wrong. In those days, you just paid your money, travelled how you could, and got there any way you could. And Manchester United turned up in numbers, in force, loyal, passionate fans. But in numbers, they took over towns. At Orient that day, they started arriving at 5:30 in the morning on trains, coaches, cars, vans. So that's just a little bit of background to what was going on at the time. It made for great times and great atmospheres, but it could also be a bit naughty.
I actually have a clip of Docherty Army that I'm going to play for everyone right now. Just give them a bit of context as to what it was like back then. Yeah, so just to give people an idea as to the numbers that United was traveling with in that time, and obviously I'll get to some of the attendance numbers, but Amy, to come to you, I mean, what did the doc ever speak about the numbers that were traveling, or did
Well, sorry, Tim. I first sort of heard about this from my dad, who was always described himself as the football nomad. You know, I think one of my granddad's favourite quotes is he's had more clubs than Jack Nicklaus. So, you know, my dad, I remember him saying, like, you know, he was a QPR fan for 10 months. He was, you know, Chelsea fan for 4 years, you know. But when he got to United, my dad settled and he found his team. And he was 16, out boarding school. And my nana, Agnes, would not let my dad travel to away games because of what was happening. So my dad is Tom, or was Tom, sorry. He lost him 5 years ago. So he is Tom and my granddad is Tommy. So a bit confusing in the Docherty household as if it's not. But so my dad obviously wasn't allowed, but my nana would obviously, with 3 other children, be, you know, my uncle Michael was playing as well. So she'd go off and watch him. And my dad would get in my granddad's boot and travel with my granddad in his boot so that my nana that he had got to the away games. And this would be like 16, 17, it'd be like 17, 18, I think. A lot of people have said to me that that season was just the best, and it made them sort of fall in love with United again, really. Doc's Red Army it's before my time, unfortunately I wasn't born, but the stories I've heard always seem to centre around that season and that era and those times where people have just really fallen in love with Manchester United, and they always say to me, you know, it was a long time coming. Whether they're just being nice, I don't know, but it's really lovely to hear. I
think you hear that from a lot of long-time Reds.
You should. I'm sure you know already, Amy, but and David, I know David will back me up on this. Your granddad, Tommy Doc, was adored, not by the Stretford end mainly, but also the others in the main stand and elsewhere. It was just that the Stretford end was full of the younger element. He was me in the manager's dugout. It was David in the manager's dugout. It was the players on the pitch. He brought passion and adventure to United. Not right away, but he certainly gave us back our team, which was in decline. And my point is just simply, he was adored, absolutely adored, right through that era.
I think what a lot of people have, thank you for that, Pete, that's lovely. What a lot of people have said is, you know, my granddad did something that, you know, I'm not comparing him to Samat by any means. What I'm saying is, you know, he started to believe a bit in the youth again and brought it forward. And, you know, we always, even now, Mason, you know, sort of like Diallo thing across, but, you know, I love that. And it's in our blood as Reds to believe in the kids, but you'll never win anything with him.
Pete, you talked about some of the numbers. Like I have, you and David were touching on the away support. I mean, we're taking like 20,000 away to Sheffield Wednesday, 15 to 20,000 away to Oldham. You talked about taking over cities. It must have just been it was just a crush on some of these cities when you went there.
That was great. I mean, from my point of view, my wife hates football. Unfortunately, she could have gone into it, but she hated it. So she never came with me. But the year in the second division, smaller road, smaller town, she'd come with. I'd drop her off in the centre. She'd do the antique shops or whatever women would do. And I'd go with my mates to the match. And it was brilliant. You know, we literally took over half the town. There was one game, Blackpool, the beach of Manchester. We won 3-0. McCalliog even got a couple. He played well. But there were Reds everywhere. It was like a carnival. We'd been unleashed. The ropes had been let off. We were just, in many ways, embodied that. Because maybe not always politically correct, but he felt what we felt. We felt he was us on the pitch. Just like later on, I thought Gary Neville was me on the pitch. Not the greatest Smith, but still, but his passion and so on. And that's what fans can relate to. It. Someone in authority has got the same passion as us. And it's not always eloquent, but reflects what we feel.
Yeah. And of course, behind all that, the passion on the terraces and in the dugout, he had to win matches. And after that win at Orient, we raced to the top of the table. We were top by the end of August, and we stayed there all season. It wasn't a canter, but basically we were winning most of our games, home games, and a lot of the away games, and nobody could really catch us. The only blip when Stuart Pearson got a little bit of a knock. Sometime around, I think he'd been carrying it for a while, but after Christmas we weren't out the FA Cup quite early, and then we lost some games, Oxford and some daft games. But our rivals, who were Villa, Norwich, Sunderland, couldn't make up ground on us. And once it got to kind of March, the Pearson was back. We were playing well again. He brought in a young lad, a very important young lad. He brought Pearson in, who'd done well then through that season. Stuart Pearson was scoring goals again. McCarty was scoring. Daly was scoring his penalties. But he brought a young lad in from Tranmere, only 75,000, which is hard to relate to now. But it was peanuts then, let alone now. And that was Steve Coppell. And he'd go on to have a career, 8 years at United. It would have been longer if he hadn't been finished by injury. He came on against Cardiff, March the 1st, 10 games from the end, and played in more or less every game after that as a right winger. And so he was there supplying the crosses for initially McCarty and McElroy and Pearson. And in that run-in, we coasted it, really. We won the league with about 5 points to spare, I think, the second division. Clinched promotion at Southampton in a 1-0 win. McCarty scored. I was down there for that. And about 2 weeks later, won at Notts County to confirm we'd be champions. Now, it was the second division. We had to take stick from Liverpool and Leeds and City supporters, but we knew that something was building there, and all we wanted was to get back quick and then give all those I've just mentioned a bloody nose the following season.
I mean, there's so many games that season. The first home game of the season was Millwall, and they played in yellow, which looked a bit weird, not as hard as you think Millwall would be. And what stood out for me, at half-time, they mentioned the second division scores first before the first division. And we all laughed and thought, that's where we are. But some of the games were just almighty games. If you remember Sunderland at home, the incredible 3-2, which had a higher gate. In fact, our whole average home games had a higher average than anybody else in the first division. But that game, Pancho twisted and scored after about 11 minutes. I was still celebrating when Sunderland went 2-1 up. I just couldn't believe Pancho's. And then we came back in the second half. Ron Davis, Win Davis. Why do we buy the Davises too late when they should have been younger? But the winner, the atmosphere that day was just incredible. And that was match of the days, match of the season as well. So we had the match of the season on match of the day and the highest attendance. That's what loyal football fans are about. It's football mirrors life. You've got to support them when they're down, not just when they're up. And no one club can reproduce that like Manchester United.
No, it's very terrific.
True. Amazing.
Yeah, it was just great, and the songs roared out that United are back, and we were just so pleased just to get back straight up on that first season. I think on the back of that, the following got bigger and stronger and louder.
Yeah.
So
Ames touched on it too, just with the youth movement and bringing in. It was really an evolution. We touched on this in part one, the evolution of the team from sort of having to dissect that the Holy Trinity. Obviously, unfortunately, we're aging, and so you must have got a sense then with the players coming through, and like you said, Pete, that things were building, David, that things were building into the 75-76 season. What were the thoughts going into that season? You said obviously that you could see how things were going. Did you think that we were there yet to challenge for the title in the first division?
A whole season in the second division with all due respect, slightly lesser players against. We were able to mould our style and our togetherness. So by the time we went back to the first division, we hit the ground running. I never thought we'd actually win the league, but I think most of us were surprised how well we did. I mean, I remember the first game back in the first division, Wolves away. We took the whole of the steep one end. A brilliant game. And we were roaring. I don't think even the Wolves fans could believe. And there was a buzz about us. We just thought there was a volcano beginning to erupt. And the first home game, I think, was Sheffield United, 5-1. Where we totally overwhelmed them. And they had one star player called Tony Curry. And he just missed a sitter in front of the Stretford end. We were going, Curry, what's the score? Curry, what's the score? And he went, yeah. So he joined the banter, even though he was losing 5-1. Memories like that I'll always remember. Like the following home game, 1-1 Coventry City. But there was, again, an exuberance, the joy, the way we played.
Right.
That was... the LVG, Marino, none of them have been able to do it. Ollie, we hope, is going to come in patches. But there was just a devil may care. He didn't always win, but you nearly always saw a great game of football.
Yeah. David's spot on there, guys and gals. Jerry Daly found his feet in the second division, Sammy Mack. Tommy Dock said it was the innocence of youth, and it was. These players that struggled a little bit as we went down, they'd come into a team that was getting old and changing. But in that second division, he introduced youth. He introduced, say, Daly and McElroy. Brian Greenoff he brought in, young Brian Greenoff. It was also starting to bring in Jimmy Nichol, Arthur Albiston was coming in then. These were great servants for the next 5 years for the Reds. So we saw that the old 68 team had more or less gone, except for Stepney and perhaps Willie Morgan. The older team that had been great had gone. I think a word of praise really doesn't always get mentioned for Willie Morgan. He only really won the second division with us, but he bridged that gap between the 68-69 European Cup winning team, which was revered. When United started to go down, he could have gone to any club in the land, but Willie Morgan stayed with United, captained them, player of the year through 72 and 73, and was a really good servant to United in those difficult years, and played lovely football on the wing. And again, the fans loved him. But
bit awkward for me, bit awkward.
What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, actually, no. Let me say, no. I don't know if people know there's a bit of a court case between my granddad and Willie. But Willie actually lives just up the road from us. They see him quite often. He knows me, I know him. Always gives me a cheeky smile. He's a lovely man, actually. Really, really lovely guy. Yeah.
Amazing.
And of course, your granddad made him captain. So for a long time, they were in love in a football sense. But David again talks about going into the first division, the top league back in, and United got a really good start. By about the middle of in fact, we didn't have any blips till towards the end, but it was unbelievable. We're going to places where Leeds and Liverpool and the Main Road, and beating our biggest rivals, which we hadn't really done since the days of Bestlaw and Charlton. We were right. It was a bit of a novelty for some of the younger fans that we'd go there and we'd turn Leeds over. You couldn't get anything out of Leeds in the early 70s, late 60s. So
I just want to before you get into, I just want to come to Ames with the question here. Did your granddad ever talk about his favorite player or players that he really enjoyed working with?
Yeah, I mean, as a player, he was at Celtic, Preston North End, and Chelsea. And at Preston, it was always Sir Tom Finney. Always. Always. Sir Tom, my dad's godfather as well. So they were great friends.
Wow.
But my granddad always said he was just in awe of him. It was a privilege. There's a story that I'm not going to get right now, but it's about my granddad asking for a wage rise. And I don't know if one of you might know about it with at Preston with Sir Tom. I don't know, but it was the. I think Sir Tom Finney, so sod off. Like I think that was the outcome of it.
Amazing.
And his favourite player It's not a United player. I'm afraid it was always Peter Osgood.
All right. I didn't know that.
That's not a bad shout, though.
Yeah.
He should have signed him.
Yeah. I just loved him. My granddad was such a football fan. There was his team was not United, but again, but would always watch anything. He would watch the lads on the park if he could. It was in his blood, and I hope it's in mine.
Wow.
Oh, it seems like
Terrific.
It is.
Yeah, the Jubilee shirt.
Just very, very briefly, before he came to Old Trafford and did this, as you say, your granddad had a lot of clubs, but he cut his managerial teeth in the early 60s with Chelsea, transforming them from something of a music hall joke in those days in the 50s, and got young players in, very exciting young players like Jimmy Greaves, etc. He did a great job with Chelsea. Chelsea fans revere him for what he did. The older Chelsea fans,
Chelsea have always been very good to him. Always, I think he made like four or five appearances for them, and then was like player manager. And I know my nana, my dad, my aunties and uncles loved always being at Chelsea. They had a house in Wimbledon, and the stories that I hear about. My granddad would come back from Chelsea with half the team, and my nana had just, planted this lovely border, and there was like a load of like grown men, professional footballers kicking around like Busy Lizzie. She was fuming. It was like every day, like that's what it was like. Chelsea have always been very good. I'm a bit annoyed at Chelsea because they've the Tommy Doc chant they've stolen for Tommy Tuck. Not happy with it.
That's no good. It'll never catch on, Amy.
No, I be fuming. He'll be gone soon.
Amazing.
And of course, your granddad managed just before he came to Old Trafford. He managed Scotland and got them to qualifying for the World Cup in '74. He got them most of the way.
Mm-hmm.
So, I always know that he was so annoyed. Like, obviously, he loved being at United. He would never have said that he wouldn't have wanted the job, but I know that he was always. Scots are very proud. I mean, we're all proud, aren't we? But Scots are very, very proud. I mean, I would class myself as Scottish. My dad was Scottish, but I would, and then I'm like half quarter English, quarter Irish. But I would always say I was English, and then my grandma would say, "Well, I'd go, well, what if Scotland play England?" And he would say, "We can always support England until they're playing Scotland." And then that's it.
I think Pete knows all about that, supporting Scotland. Didn't remember you saying, Pete, when Doc was there, that when the Mac United Revolution was going around, didn't you tell me that Scotland were playing England at one point, and you went and actually supported Scotland for all the Scottish contingent that were at United?
Wembley 73 for the home internationals. England and Scotland played every year. 1 year at Hampden, 1 year at Wembley. Tommy Dock had signed more than half the Scottish team within weeks of him coming to Old Trafford. They were called Mac United. We covered this last time. There was guys on the Stretford end in kilts playing bagpipes, tartan scarves were everywhere. This was well before the Bay City Rollers. So, of course, I jumped on the bandwagon. I was only a kid, and whatever United did and Tommy Dock did, I wanted to be there. So I went and supported Scotland. I learned a lot about how many crates of whiskey you can get in the luggage compartment of coaches that had come down from Scotland.
Clinking.
It was unbelievable.
I know we would have loved to have taken the Scottish team to a World Cup as a manager. As any football manager will say, to be manager of their national team and to take them to a World Cup it's the dream. I'm not saying that he regretted it. I don't know, but there were stories of not sadness, but just timing. But he could never have turned down Manchester United, and he could never have said no to Sir Matt Busby. So what do you do?
He did the right thing.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Gillette TV advert? I'll always remember that Tommy Docherty called Gordon Hill and Stuart Coppell, it's how it was fit, into his office. And he was saying, lads, all about Gillette. If you shaved yourself, you go faster. So there was Tommy Docherty Gillette shavers in 1974-75.
Do you know, David, this is the first time I've ever even heard about that. So I have learned something tonight. So thanks very much.
Now you got to go on YouTube.
Find it.
I bet there's some awful YouTube somewhere of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to track it down now.
Hiding place.
Oh yeah, the Gillette advert, yeah, with Coppell and Hill. Yeah. So we got to about, did we get to 75, 76 back in the first division?
Yep, 75, 76.
I guess the crazy thing about that was there we were, started off well. By Christmas, just before Christmas, went to Everton, got a draw, and went top of the league. So you're halfway through the season, and United haven't run out of steam. We're top of the league, and it carries on all through Christmas. We beat the second in the league, QPR at Old Trafford in a great game. Liverpool were just nudging out in front because they were starting to be a dominant force then in the mid-70s. But also, it got to the new year, and United having a great run in the FA Cup as well. And it got to April, and United were genuinely, I wouldn't say odds on, but looking like they were going to win the double. They were a couple of points off the top of the league, and they were playing a semi-final against Derby County at Hillsborough. Derby County were the reigning champions then. They were great. And United hadn't been to Wembley in the FA Cup since '63, so 13 years before. I'd never seen an FA Cup final. And neither had quite a few of the lads and girls of my generation. And we went and played Derby County off the field with two great goals from a guy called Gordon Hill, who Tommy Dock bought in the November of '75 from Millwall, another bargain buy. So we now had Coppell on the right wing, Hill on the left wing, Pearson in the middle, and Macari still. And that forward line will resonate with a lot of older fans that saw it. It was to die for. It was full-out attacking football, 4-2-4 you'd call it now. They could all score. They could all create chances. And a bit like some of the teams that Docherty created and Fergie created and Ollie's trying to create now, going forward at pace and speed. And before you knew it, United had scored. But we beat Derby 2-0 to get to the final of FA Cup final, and we were only a couple of points off the league. Unfortunately, I think we ran out of steam there, David. I don't know what you felt.
Well, my life, I went through 8 losing semi-finals, from the mud at Hillsborough in '64 against West Ham to the second replay at Burnham Park against Leeds United, where Billy Bremner scored right in front of me. So when Gordon Hill opened our scoring against Derby in the 11th minute, listen, the dam burst, the veil of tears. I thought, at last, we're going to get to Wembley. It was an incredible feeling. In fact, the previous game was special. We played Wolves at home. I was driving up, passing, once we got onto the M6, passing all the Wolves fans, and then suddenly I had a puncture. And we had to go by the side of the road in my Hillman Hunter, and all the Wolves fans were giving us 2 fingers. We changed it in record-breaking Formula One speed, and then we went repast them again with a new tyre. That was fantastic. Jerry Daly saved us that game, but then the replay, as you know, and United have got a history of winning replays 3-2. That replay against Wolves at Molineux was a fantastic game. And then the semi-final, as I say, Derby, who were the champions, that was it. Whether we were complacent again, the final against Southampton. I think we're unlucky. I mean, we all know Bobby Stokes' goal was offside. But I remember seeing Southampton had beaten Palace in the semi. And Mick Shannon said to Osgood, we're not going to go there just to make up the numbers. We're going there to win. And somehow or other, we took our eye off the ball. Very frustrating. I thought we should have won, but then I'm biased, aren't I?
I said to you the other day, Pete, a goal set up by Jim McCalliog too, an old player coming back to haunt us in that final. Well,
Southampton were in the second division then when they beat us, That was quite rare. Well, it's rare in any time in history. United there, back in the First Division, fighting on Cup and League. But Southampton had quite 3 or 4 really quality, experienced guys towards the end of the career. Amy, one was Peter Osgood. Yep. So, so your granddad should have signed him. Another one was Jim McCallion they got from us. They had Bobby Stokes, they had Peter Rodriguez, a fullback, and they had a top up-and-coming guy called Mick Shannon. But really, United, I think the innocence of youth ran out on that Saturday because we were overawed, like we froze, really. Nobody played well. But really, after that semi-final that we talked about earlier of beating Derby and beat them comfortably, the following week, I went to Ipswich. We all took off for Ipswich for the last 6 games for the running. Ipswich murdered us 3-0. And I don't think we'd lost for weeks and weeks. Mm-hmm. And then I think we lost 2 out the remaining 4 games, a home game to Stoke, which we shouldn't have lost. And then, but the week before Wembley, we'd lost the league by then, but thousands were going down. And we played a game at Leicester City, lost 2-1, that doesn't matter. A young lad called Peter Coyne made his debut, scored the goal. But a song started on the terraces, and there was Reds in every part of Filbert Street that day. And the song that started that day was Que Sera Sera, We're Going to Wembley. And all through the defeat, we just sang it, and all the scarves were waving. And it had its genesis on that day. Everywhere I went that following week before the cup final, I could hear this song being sung in the streets of Manchester, and wherever you went, people were humming it. Que Sera Sera at Leicester 76. But sadly on the day we couldn't do it, and we'd come 3rd in the league and runners up in the cup. You'd have taken that at the start of the season, but once you're so near that pot of gold and you nearly had 2 hands on it and you lose it, it was sad. But we had 1 game to fulfil, and it was a postponed match, City at home in the league, and we whooped them, and that kind of made up for it.
Ames, did your dad and granddad ever relay any memories of the 76 Cup final?
My dad was there, obviously. Family, obviously, because family they are.
Right.
They were. My dad was more of a fan than Tommy Docherty's son at this stage, so he was a fan with major perks. All I know is that there was my dad was pissed off. My granddad was not happy, but pretty hopeful that, it had given the players like a taste of what it's like, to go, not win. And he always said that he would win it the next year. He always said it. Now, we're quite a stubborn family. And when we want something, we bloody go and get it. So I think that has come from the big man himself. But it's I just know the 76 season, my uncle Mick was playing for City.
Oh yeah.
Oh. Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah, he only played about 8 games, 9 few games anyway. But so my poor Nana had a husband managing Manchester United and her eldest firstborn child playing for Man City. I could only imagine what was like. She always told the story of they were sat across a Sunday lunch table once, and it'd be like 10 days or like the week of say the Sunday before they'd be playing like on the Saturday, and my granddad was like staring down like the barrel of a gun to my Uncle Michael, and Uncle Michael was like, I'm just gonna play it up and go home. Like I just left. Sorry, I'm off, because he knew. I think he knew that any tactics or anything would be completely spilt. Like my Uncle Michael could not have held his own against his dad. No, happened.
That's amazing.
When they came back in 76, having lost to Southampton, the reception at the town hall and in the streets of Manchester was superb. They got a tremendous reception. Thousands crowded outside the town hall. And your granddad came on the balcony with the team, and he made just a very good speech. He kind of apologised to the fans. He felt he'd let them down a bit. He hadn't, of course. But he just said, I promise we'll be back next year. Now, he probably said that a bit tongue-in-cheek, because that it was always very good with a one-line quip, your granddad. Tommy Doc, just one-liner like that, in any situation almost, you know. But he was also a man that also felt really from the heart as well. And he wouldn't kid the fans. He couldn't guarantee we'd be back, but he knew it would be important to try and get back. And sure enough, he kept his promise. But it was already a hero then, because he'd got us back on track. But he said it on the balcony of the town hall for all to hear, Amy.
Okay, you know, I didn't know that. I literally have just read the comment and I didn't know that. I'm awful. I'm so sorry. I guess you don't need to watch football clips when you've got the person maybe telling you. Sorry, I didn't actually know.
Don't apologise. You weren't born.
No, that is a major point in it, actually. Yeah.
But do you know what, Amy? David and I aren't going to be around for that much longer. So
No,
you've got to pass this on.
Just looking in the comments, guys, and like I said, it's such for a young fan and for such a like Loz, she's one of my she devils, and like look back on like not just my grandma's life, but United and the players that he bought, and it's awful because I'm such a red. I've had my season tickets since 1994. Like my name goes on my seat. Well, it should have done this year, but they won't have done it because obviously. But you know, I pay for it, by the way, before anyone thinks I'm getting freebies. They probably charge more because my last name is Docherty. But I'm such a red, like through and through red. And it sounds awful, but half of this I didn't know. You are schooling me and schooling such a younger generation of fans that it's just brilliant. Like, this is so great. Love it. Thank you.
Well, that's good, Amy. It is one of the reasons why Tim and I wanted to do this sort of thing. There's many type of podcasts, and some people aren't interested in the history. It's old stuff, you know, history, obviously. But some people are. And I always think to know where you're going, you've got to know where you've come from, you know?
And I had this sort of conversation a few weeks ago that we're not going to go into it, but I think we have such a history as a club. I mean, not just the Babes, but, you know, obviously that's a huge part of our history. But we have history. You know, we're not Chelsea or City. You know, we don't have a billionaire that comes in and throws money at a situation. We build and we trust in our youth, and we always have. So I really honestly believe in knowing your history, because I'd like the players to probably know a bit more history, because maybe they might pull a shirt on with passion and pride, but that's not for today.
Your history is the foundations that you build the building on. I'm always pleased when players of the modern day read about the history, like the Patrice Evras and so on of this world, and they understand what it means to put on the shirts. Because of the history, from Billy Meredith to going back and how it started and what they had to overcome, and the ground bomb during the war they had to play at Main Road. It all builds up to what we have today. Yeah,
absolutely.
Totally agree. Thank you, guys. It's great.
Well, I'll put up the league table here, Pete, just to finish off sort of 76. 75, 76.
Can you just hide that top one, please? It's horrible.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
I should have just left that one off, but
unfortunately, that became something of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But probably good then to move on to 76, 77.
So
and
decent finish for 75, 76, though. I would think just to finish off. I think
would you say Pete and David that was that a surprise to finish that high in the table at that time? Did you think that you would be able to? I mean, look at the goals we scored. We scored 68 goals that season. It's a hell of a lot of goals.
The way we started off, some people thought we might do the league. I didn't think that, but the way we swept many teams away with our style of football, in the end, we believed in ourselves and the players. And one of the great things about the end of that season, for me, it would be the first time I could see United in Europe. Because even I was too young for the 56s and Real Madrids, you know. So our first game in the Intercity Fairs Cup was Ajax away in Amsterdam. And I have to tell you, half of Manchester came to Amsterdam. The Reds were everywhere. All the red light districts, all the bars. It was a fantastic atmosphere. Then going to the stadium, there were so many Reds, they transferred the match from the normal Ajax stadium to the Olympic Stadium. And to begin with, we're like 1,000,000 miles away from the pitch, taking up half of the semicircle at one end. And it wasn't a great game. And I remember at halftime, it was 0-0, or maybe we were already losing 1-0. And some Reds stood up and said, come on, Reds, we're united. And that sparked it. And from the whole of the second half, we roared the guys home. We weren't able to get the goal, but that was the atmosphere that we'd been missing for the rest of that game. And it was fantastic. We might have lost 1-0. That was the start for me. I mean, you can go abroad on business is one thing. You go abroad on a holiday is another. But nothing beats going abroad following United. Conga lines down the street. You do things following United you never do if anybody else is watching. It's just brilliant. And for me, that's been the carnival for the rest of my life, is getting United into Europe. Above all else.
David, spot on there, because I forgot to mention that although we runners up in the cup, third in the league, Tommy Docherty got us back into Europe for the first time since '69. You'd never imagined that from going in the mid-50s right through to the end of the 60s. Manchester United and Europe were then synonymous. And then it all dried up. Other English teams were going to Europe. And when I was a young kid, United were winning in Benfica in '66, 5-1, and getting a draw in Madrid in '68 to get through to the European Cup final. I was only 12 and 13. I dreamed of going to the cathedrals of Europe. And I ended up at Oldham and York and Orient. So a few years later, as David says, going to Ajax to play a game. Ajax had been European champions 71, 72, 73. Yeah. We played them that season, 76. They were still a very, very good team. Away, a bit of a scrappy 1-0 loss. But the atmosphere at the home game was right up there, I'd say, with Barcelona in '84.
Really?
I didn't see the ones in the 50s. The Ajax manager, after he'd heard the United fans in Holland, he said, yeah, we're 1-0 up, we've got a good team, we're confident of going to Manchester, but I do fear their fans, the noise of their fans. And he was spot on. I think Greenough and McElroy scored that night, Brian Greenough. And we lifted the roof, didn't we, David, in that home leg, to come from 1-0 down to win 2-0 against Ajax. It was brilliant. Yeah,
I mean, that's where it's the fans. We were so uninhibited. The noise, matching Concord, whatever. And also, the thing about United fans more than anybody else, even when you lose, we keep on singing. And just a few years ago, lost 4-0 away to Chelsea, Conte. We never stopped. When Fergie was about to retire, we were losing 3-1 at Tottenham. Every single one of us, Tottenham scored, shouted, and then they went quiet again, and we carried on singing. They couldn't believe it.
People always do. Always.
Yeah, it's something.
26th of May 1999. There was seconds ago, and we were still singing.
Well,
that's always been a feature of Manchester United fans. The support we give, everybody supports the team, even if it's a little pub team. But the passion of Manchester United fans, and there's some people knock it for today, and it's still a very passionate atmosphere. And you only have to go back to the last match that was played against City on March the 9th last year. When McTominay's goal went in, the ground shook. I mean, the actual earth shook, not the stands, the ground. So the passion's still there. And in the mid-70s, it was probably at its peak in terms of you had the more animated supporter, you might say. And that noise, although after we played Ajax, I was lucky enough to go to Juventus for the next game. So we're dead unlucky. We're back in Europe after 7 years. We could have got, no disrespect, an Irish club, a Maltese club or anybody. But we got Ajax, 3 times European Cup winners. We beat them. Then we got Juventus. Juventus had 7 of the Italian team in their squad, in their 11. We beat them 1-0 at home. Gordon Hill scored a cracker. Again, the Stretford end of the rest of the ground raised the volume. But over there, they murdered us 3-0. And when we talk about noise in an English ground or on the Stretford end, which is almost second to none, the noise that the Italians made, 66,000 in the Stadio Comunale, the flags were the size of the side of a house. The drums, the staccato drums that hundreds of their fans had, there was nothing like it. You couldn't really get a United song going. And when you did, you had Italians jumping up at the dividing fence at you for having the audacity to sing. So we didn't always get our own way.
No.
So the European trip ended really with beating Ajax on aggregate, losing 3-1 on aggregate to Juventus. But
go on, Ames. What were we going to say?
I was just saying about the Italian fans, though. My dad happened to work for, I don't know if any of you remember, Gazzetta. Saturday mornings, go Lazio.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone would go, James Richardson, if I go, yeah. My dad was a TV football director, and he was working on that. So he spent a lot of time in Italy. So I was very lucky as a little girl to go to every ground in Italy,
Wow.
Nothing to do with my granddad, really, you know, but when people see Tom Docherty, you know, and you're going into a ground, you get like treated a little bit better for some reason. Apart from Old Trafford. Where...
Ames, what was that? You were telling me that story yesterday about when you were in school. I don't know if you want to share it. But
when I was saying this to you, and I was saying this to the girls and she devils as well. When I went to an all girls Catholic convent, and my school class at school was Gemma Best, and then Kate Charlton, and then Amy Docherty.
Wow.
Charlton. And I had a Latin teacher called Mr. Littlewood, who was awesome, but he went, Gemma Best, any relation of George? And she went, no, like, she didn't think she had a clue who he was at 11. Like Kate Charlton, no relation of like Jack or Bobby? And she was like, no. And he went, so I don't take it you don't know who Tommy Docherty is. And I went, yeah, he's my granddad. And he went, fuck off. And then he was like,
oh, brilliant.
That was a great story.
So yeah, it's just a weird little
a great little anecdote.
Completely by coincidence as well.
Yeah, terrific.
What sort of school was it if those two other girls didn't know about Best and Charlton?
Well, an all girls one. But I tell you, Roy Keane's daughter Shannon was there as well. She was there a few years below me as well. Used to see him on the school run. He was always happy. We were like,
nice one.
Very short in life, those girls, not to know about who they are.
Yeah.
Their namesakes.
Dads were probably City fans as well. So.
Well, getting back to the results in the 76-77 season, we started off well and then looked like we had a bit of a patch in October, from October to December, where losses and draws, and then a decent January and March. What are your memories, like David and Pete, from that season in terms of the performances and the results and where we were?
Drop points which are inexplicable. We would play Tottenham at home. We played brilliantly. We're 2-0 up, and we thought this is coasting. We're playing great. I don't know if you remember, we lost 3-2. How we came out of the ground? How did we lose that? You know, the games that season. How did we lose? We won 3-1 at City, which was great. Well, we lost 4-0 away to West Brom, who always seem to have a sign over us for some reason or other. The things that always annoy me being a Cockney Red is losing in London, like we lost 3-1 to Arsenal. You know, that always annoyed me. We didn't have a very good run in London. The previous season, we lost most of our London games. We lost 4-0 away to QPR. That's embarrassing. And we lost 4-2 away to West Ham. That was frustrating for me Because I like coming out of a ground, even a tough ground, where they say, hide your scarves, hide your scarves. Okay, they can't hide your smile, your Cheshire grin smile when you win. In some games, you go home. It was, again, an up and down season. But again, the cup run kept us all going. While the league stuttered up and down, the cup run was, again, amazing. And to come to, I remember I went to the Aston Villa game at home. There was just a sense of inevitability that we would win that. It was a very tough game. But then for our second most hated rivals, Leeds, to do them in the semi-final, that took a lot of pleasure. Our lot, we took a of the Leeds end. We were in the big bank behind the goal. And I can't tell you the pleasure it gave me to do them, because they weren't as invincible. Don Revid left. They got Don Mackay. But they were still a force on paper. But again, we did them. And again, it was a chance to make everything, to make amends for what happened the previous season.
Mm-hmm. From the men. These are all these pictures too. They're these great. These are Pete. Are these your papers from your personal collection? Are they not? You still have your
Yes,
yeah.
they are. They are the things that my parents and various girlfriends, not my wife, have told me that I should throw away, and I'd just be a sad old man. Well, I'll let you decide on that. But yeah, I like memorabilia, and I've found a place to keep. I've always kind of stored it and managed to keep hold of it from various houses and places I've lived. But that was the football pink that used to come out that older fans would know about. You'd wait outside the ground for the pink to be printed. The Manchester Evening News pink, and it gave you all the scores from the other matches. And I know that anybody that's over 55 now has to say things like, there was no mobile phones in those days, but there was no mobile phones in those days. So that's how you found out the score, by waiting for the newspaper to come out.
Yeah.
But can I just go back to before we had the euphoria of the FA Cup and end on that high?
Yeah.
The dip that happened in October, I personal view, Martin Buchan got injured on duty playing for Scotland very early in October, and he was out until the Christmas.
Yeah.
Now, Martin Buchan, we've not touched on much. Frank O'Farrell signed him.
Yep.
Captain of Aberdeen, first Scotsman to win, first player to win the English Cup final and the Scottish Cup final. A very classy left centre back, now you'd call him, left half in those days. Signed by O'Farrell in 72. I think Frank O'Farrell was going to build a team around him. In the end, Tommy Dock did that. He was a Rolls Royce of a player, a Ferrari of a player. And we missed him. We weren't a one-man team for sure, but he was out for about those 2 months. And if you look at the results, we went out of Europe and we dipped right until Christmas. We beat Villa and Everton, I think, round about Christmas and New Year's Day. Lost to Ipswich on the 3rd of Jan and didn't lose again then till 3rd of April, something like that, at Norwich. So you talk about losing in London. East Anglia was our graveyard at the end of that season. But the run was great then for the FA Cup. We couldn't catch up in the league, but we were too far behind in the league. But we'd come from about 6th from the bottom in early December, and we got Buchan back by Christmas and rose up to 6th position. That wasn't bad. But he also made another very key signing, David, which I think you'll remember. He bought Pearson, great signing. Tommy Dock had brought Coppell, great signing. He added Gordon Hill in. The last piece of his jigsaw, which I think if it had stayed, it had gone on and challenged Liverpool for the title in 77, 78. He bought an ageing player who kept all that youth together, and that was Jimmy Greenough, Brian Greenoff's brother.
Yeah, he's 30 years old when he came in, wasn't he?
He was, but he was like Sheringham coming in, and what he did, it's like Cantona coming in. He had the confidence, not the arrogance, the confidence, and it was a great front man to hold the ball up with Pearson. But just one little story about how we got him. Tommy Dock had been after Jimmy Greenoff for a while.
Yeah.
And Stoke didn't want to let them go. Stoke had a good team in those days, but I think they'd won the League Cup a few years before. They weren't going to let the player go. Tommy Dock kept putting a word in with Jimmy Greenough, the story goes. Sorry, I'd love to sign for you, Tommy, but I'm happy man at Stoke. But your brother's there. It doesn't matter. I'm a happy man at Stoke. January 76, bad storm in Britain. The roof is blown off the main stand at Stoke. Stoke are in turmoil financially. They have sold Mike Pedgick, they sold Alan Hudson, and Tommy Dock thought he never missed an opportunity. I'll go and talk to Jimmy Greenough. Even then, Jimmy Greenough said, I don't know, Tommy, I don't know. Tommy Dock said, take 2 weeks to decide. Don't have to make your mind up now. Stoke are ready to sell you because they need the money to fix the roof. Sounds like a made-up story on my kid's life. It's true. Eventually, somebody says to Jimmy Greenough, you can't turn Man United down. Just like Amy said, Tommy Dock couldn't turn Matt Busby down. Jimmy Greenough came and signed for Man United. And for those next 7 months, we didn't look back. It was football played in heaven almost.
It was silky smooth.
Amazing.
Running.
Sorry, David. Go on.
No,
I was just saying when you took the 76-77 season is quite a big one in the Docherty family history.
A little bit. I was going to come to you, and what are some of the stories or memories that you've heard about that season?
Well, like we were saying before, when you know your history, you've got to know where you came from. So without going too much into it, because but my family was divided and hurting, and still is actually from what happened with Mary. However, Mary has been by his side ever since. They have a family. They have I don't like disrespectful comments on social media towards her. I find it disgraceful, actually. However, without getting too much into it, my family is very divided. However, it just happened that it was in the press. It was news to other people. To me, it's my family. My dad didn't actually speak to his dad, my granddad. My dad, from 77 till my dad died in 2016, they didn't speak for nearly 4 years. So very when people go, oh, Mary did that, it's not funny for me, it's not jokes, it's not my dad would tell me stories of my granddad at clubs, but I never saw them together, and that's really sad, actually. So but I have the most love for Mary. She has been in my life from the day I was born. They've got 2 beautiful daughters together, my aunties Grace and Lucy. I've got a gorgeous auntie Kath. I've got my uncle Mick, my uncle Peter. We're a great family. We're spread around the country because people settled where they did when my granddad happened to be managing a random club. So but it is what it is. But yeah, I just wanted to sort of touch on that. My nana passed away in 2002. And they were still semi-friendly, spoke to each other. He'd ring up, and she'd go, all right, TD.
Yeah.
That's what it is. But I didn't want to not touch on it because I didn't want people to think that I was going to ignore it. It's too much of a big thing for me to ignore. However, very lucky that other people in our family are great at keeping communication lines open, and we have got a great network, really, and very, very privileged to have the name, really.
Well, it's good insight to the time. I mean, that's obviously not something for us that we didn't want to dive into it because it wasn't our place, but thanks for
one of those. I don't want people to we all know why he left. He always said he left for falling in love, and clearly he did fall in love. Very, he didn't go about it the right way. But sorry, I'm on with 3 men. But when do men ever do anything the right way?
Amy.
Fernandez, he does everything the right way. He's all right. Yeah. Go on.
Amy, you're on the wrong show to make comments like that.
I know. The same with the Sea Devils.
I'm sure my wife would agree with you.
Loose women.
So that's it.
We were I can remember that I was 22 then, 22. So Tommy Docherty had quite simply, with Tommy Kavanagh and the board, had made my club great again, or even maybe not, or very good at least, and even not great. They'd given me, I never lost faith in my club. I never have, never will, I don't think. But he'd made me proud of my club again. And so what he did, I would have forgiven him anything, Amy. It's not for me to get into his personal life. I was just crushed that at last, having stopped the decline of 9 years, Amy, the man who probably had got United back up after we tried Wilf McGuinness, God bless him, we tried Matt again, we tried Frank O'Farrell. Tommy Doc had got us back up to where I believe United should be, playing great football and winning things. And he'd done that, and I was left in a bit of a void in that summer, wondering where it would go with here. How could it have gone that way, that he brought us back and now that man was gone? I understood what had happened. I was an adult then. And so, but it left a lot of Manchester United fans just sad that the guy who actually, how we didn't know at the time. We were just happy we'd beaten Liverpool, where we won the cup. We'd beaten Liverpool. We stopped Liverpool doing the treble that season. Liverpool won the league and they won the European Cup for the first time. 22 years later, Manchester United became the first English team, the only English team to win the treble, not a treble, the treble. And your dad stopped the Scousers doing that.
Yeah,
your granddad, sorry, your granddad.
Yeah, I love it. Sorry, you got me really, just got me emotional. It's I from what I know of the time, I think that it's just sad that so many. There was 5 people affected, not including my granddad. You know, my dad and his brothers and sisters, and my nana. Also, Mary, her children, and her husband. You know, but the thousands of fans that I think thought and had a belief and knew, they don't care who he's lying next to at night. It wouldn't happen now. We're very aware of that. United are a Catholic club. They had a sort of Catholic leadership, you know, didn't like it, wanted to stick by my nana. It wouldn't happen now, but there was only a very small amount of people that were actually personally affected by it. You know, the generations that have gone to me, we're all still affected by what happened, as anyone is in any divorce, obviously. But I think so many thousands of United fans felt a bit annoyed that I think what the decision that had been made. That's one of my favourite pictures with the cup lid on his head. Mainly because I just would have loved to have been there at that time, where my immediate family, as in, you know, was just all there in that happy, lovely, joyous moment. I would have just loved to have shared in that joy. I think it's I just get, I've got no top lip, and I just get it from him. It's so annoying.
Well, you know, Amy, I think that picture there, professionally, I think that was your granddad's happiest moment. Because what we should remember as well, just to put it in perspective, the FA Cup was a lot more important then than it was now. It really was. It wasn't messed around with by being played on a Thursday night or whatever. The FA Cup was massive all the way through from 1872 right up to the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. I think your granddad played in a cup final for Preston in the 50s against West Brom, if I remember rightly. I don't remember it. You know, I'm not that old. But to get us to win the FA Cup, that was massive. And it was only the 4th time Manchester United had won the FA Cup, Amy. So historically, it had gone from 1878 to 1977. Almost, what's that, 99 years? I can't do the maths.
Wow.
The fact we've won it all those times since is great, but he only won it for the fourth time.
Yeah.
And so
I think maybe what he would have gone on to do at the club would have been as a fan, I would have loved to have seen and obviously his granddaughter, I would have loved to have seen what he could have been capable of, I think my granddad then flitted around from club to club. I mean, when I was born, he was managing Altrincham, for crying out loud. Like, sorry, Tim. Like, I'm a big Alty fan. Like, but you know, I think after that, he was never the same. I don't think. And it's a real shame for the club, for the fans, and for him. It was just a big bloody mess, eh?
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think that my takeaway from doing all this, and you know, I talked to longtime Reds, talking to just reading a lot about it, is just the fondness that United fans have of them. And obviously there's the personal aspect of things, Ames, which like you and your family, you know, had to go through. But from a United fan point of view, like Pete touched on, just the fondness and reminiscing about that era. And I know a lot of Reds have reached out to you, Ames, and said the same, right? With how much.
I feel like I've just brought this great thing right down by, don't get a bloody woman on. We always cry.
No.
Don't.
I think it's an important part of it, for sure.
Yeah.
Glad that you shared it with us.
Just want to thank so many, everyone who has sent messages, sent cards, made donations to Lou Macari's Homeless Foundation in her granddad's memory as well. Lou is a bloody superstar. He is. I love the man. Love the face of him. But yeah, just and a big shout to Tommy Kavanagh's son Tom as well. Who has just been great. Sent me a message. Been having a chat. Put him in touch with
That's a nice message from Kaner.
Gonna set me off again.
Did you, Amy? There was I know Deborah Kavanagh just got in touch on Twitter last night. I posted a picture of when United went to see the Pope. There's an old song, a tenor song about the famous Man United going to Rome to see the Pope, but we're before the watershed, so I won't start singing it.
Sorry, I was effing and jeffing before, actually, just about my teacher. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Oh, don't worry. But Tommy's on that. Tommy Kavanagh, Tommy Doc. They played an Anglo-Italian Cup game against Lazio in Rome in 1973. That doesn't matter really, but they got an audience with the Pope of the time, and there's a great picture with the board there and the players there, and then Tommy Doc's there, Tommy Kavanagh, Laurie Brown, etc. And it's a good picture. She hadn't seen that. She didn't know her dad, Tommy Kavanagh, had been to that. Into that picture. So sometimes all this old memorabilia that old sods like me and David churn out counts for something, because it's people. It's not just football. It's people's relationships, you know.
You're amazing, because I knew that my granddad had met the Pope, but I also haven't seen that picture. I haven't seen never seen either.
There's a comment coming down there, and I could just see, what did the Pope say? It's a City song where he told Manchester United to bugger off, apparently. But we won't go into that. But there's a guy called Sean. I forget his second name, so forgive me, Sean. But when I posted that last night, he said that the conversation went, and I don't think this was true, but the Pope blessed United. He said, I'm sorry, Tommy, but I can't play for you. He said, no, Pontiff, will you pray for us?
Oh, that's a fantastic story.
He told it better than me, and that was on Twitter.
His accent was, something to be.
I can imagine Tommy wouldn't have been overawed. He would have come out with the right thing to say in front of the Pope as well. I wish that conversation had been recorded.
He's raised a good Catholic boy, but yeah, don't think so.
Amazing. Well, I kind of gave my as we come to the end of the show here, I kind of gave my little spiel on what I know of the Tommy Doc era. This was a lot of fun doing this and covering it, because if I could go back and live through one era, Pete, it would be this era for me. Like I would, as a United fan, I wish I was born in '79, so I need another be 18 at the time would have been perfect. My formative years going through this period, but
Go
ahead, Ames.
I was just saying, you'd be born 1961, so you'd also be celebrating a big birthday this year as well. So good shout. Yeah.
I'll come.
I guess for Dave and I, we were kind of 17, 18 then. So it was the formative years of your life, your first kiss, your first love affair. But for me at the time, my first love affair was Manchester United. And it was just a fantastic era to go through. We shouldn't disrespect or dismiss what Fergie's done for Manchester United. And I would find it hard to say if I couldn't go back, I wouldn't go back to the treble, because that gave us everything. But in terms of on and off the pitch, and the music we had, and the fun we had, and the irreverence we had, as well as the joy and the good times, you could make a great film of kind of that period from kind of 72 to 77. And Doc was at the head of our church. And
in the previous program, when United
went
down and into the second division, as United went down, the music went up. The late 60s, early mid 70s, for me, is the best era ever for music. I know people divided between skinhead and rockers, whatever, but for me, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Rory Gallagher, Bob Dylan, Allman Brothers Band, I could go on forever, this podcast. It was the best era ever. And rock music was like watching United. No matter how good the music was on your record, vinyl, seeing them live, seeing United live, seeing a rock concert live was another dimension, would blow your brains out. That was a wonderful time. For us as United fans, following United down and then up, and also music. I went to the Bath Festival in 1970, Led Zeppelin, Shepton Mallet, all those sort of concerts. It was a wonderful time. Sometimes I feel sorry for kids today. I listen to the top 10. I try and keep in with it. I'm going, it's all synthesized. Every artist sounds the same. And so suddenly a band like The Who, HU, this rock band from Mongolia, they come on, I think, it's not me getting old, it's the music. Suddenly they're saying, well, get me going.
I tell you what we need to bring back, FA Cup final songs. That's what we need. These FA Cup final songs.
But from the terraces, not made up by somebody like blue is the colour for Chelsea. They never did it for them.
David,
the Red Tribe do it before, because that is a tune.
I thought you've turned it into a set of One Foot in the Grave here, David.
I remember in my day, again, take off the wig. Yeah.
Ames, anything else you want to finish up with before we say goodbye to the good people?
No, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on, guys.
Oh, thank you for joining us.
Sorry for crying.
Oh, don't be daft.
Yeah.
I'm going to go downstairs. I've got no children tonight because my wonderful mother has taken them. So I'm going to go downstairs, fill up my gin and tonic, and raise it to a wonderful granddad, a wonderful man. So if you would all join me tonight in doing the same, thank you very much.
Yes, indeed. Everybody have a drink.
Fans, we love him. We love him for what he did. We love him, warts and all. We've got warts, and that's why we could identify with him. He's, as Pete said, he was us on the pitch for us on the terraces. So there'll always be that connection that will never die.
Indeed.
And it's been great to hear your stories, Amy. Really lovely to hear the personal view of the man, because he was a caring man, I believe. When I bumped into him briefly, and he did help us out one time, a few of my friends, and when we were involved in a car accident, him and Tommy Kavanagh came round to the hospital, to 3 different hospitals around Manchester, to four friends who were injured in a car crash coming back from a United match at Ipswich in January 77. And he came round and spent proper time with them after the match at Old Trafford, after the Walsall game in January 77. And I saw the man then. It was nothing to do with football, even though we joked about football.
The father and a grandfather.
He was brilliant.
And you've got to remember at the time as well, my dad was in 77, my dad was 21. My Uncle Michael will have been, 26, 27. My Uncle Peter was 12. So, Auntie Kath was, 23. So, he's a dad as well. So stuff like that doesn't surprise me because, that's when you say you saw the man, he was a dad and a grandfather and a great grandfather, you know. So
yeah, for sure. Well, thank you to everybody that got in the comments. Everybody that got in the comments, thank you very much for tuning in. David, thanks for joining us for both of these episodes. There it is, talking your Reds. And hopefully we'll hope to get you back on for sure. Of course, Pete, my co-hosts, thank you very much as always. And of course to Amy, thank you so much for joining us. And with the personal touch is really, you know, I think it really put the cherry on the cake for us. And
you're a great channel as well, guys. Keep at it. You're absolutely brilliant. Really, really. Your knowledge is unbelievable. So great. Loved it.
That's good. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks so much.
We will we be back with another episode next month. But okay.
Good stuff. God bless him.